Today is Chick Corea's birthday. Fortunately, he's not with us anymore for a few years now. But I want to tell you a little story about him. I'm from Mexico City originally, and I grew up listening and playing mostly rock and roll. I was obsessed with John Bonham, with Stuart Copeland, Neil Peart. And then one day I saw the movie Amadeus, and I got obsessed with classical music and with Amadeus. So I got myself into the conservatory in Mexico City, Escuela Superior de Música, actually, to study the piano degree. I was playing drums, but I was not interested in studying drums at that moment. I had my rock bands and was playing around Mexico. And in this school, Escuela Superior de Música, there was an ongoing jazz workshop there. And I would listen to the ensembles playing the combos, and I was like, oh, no, that seems kind of interesting. And I would go down and check them out. And I was, upstairs practicing Chopin and Czerny and Debussy and stuff like that. But the sound of jazz started kind of calling me. And I went downstairs and I started meeting some friends. And one of my friends eventually, we were talking, and he said, you like rock and stuff, so check this out. Maybe you might like this. And he gave me a tape, and the tape said Chick Corea Electric Band, Light Years. And I was like, oh, I don't know who this is, but let's check it out. So I went home and I put it on my tape player and I started listening to that thing, and it just absolutely blew me away. These people were improvising, were playing. I mean, I think one of the things that attracted me to that sound was that I came from rock, and it had a big drum sound, electric instruments. They were playing with a lot of grit, but of course they were also improvising. Like, I'd never heard anybody improvise like that before. And of course, this was the Chick Corea Electric Band with Maestro Dave Weckl, with Eric Marienthal, my good friend John Patitucci, and my good friend Frank Gambale. So the first time I heard that band, it was like the first time I heard Led Zeppelin, first time I heard The Police, first time I heard Rush, first time I heard Miles. It was like the gateway drug for me to get into jazz. I started trying to play along to those records like I used to with these other bands that I just mentioned. But of course, that was way harder. And it was impossible in the beginning because the parts were so hard. And then around that time, I also got my hand on Dave Weckl's instructional videos, so I started studying those, and that was the way I just started getting jazz into my head. And then when I finally got to Berkeley, then I started getting more into straight ahead. But my dream was to play with Chick because he meant so much to me. He was, like I said, my gateway into jazz. So I had all his records back in Mexico, and I saw him live in Boston when I moved to Berkeley a few times. And it was just every time I saw him, I was like, oh man, one day I want to play with him. And I started playing with Pat Metheny, who also was, of course, one of my heroes. And then we were in Vienne, in France, and it was a double bill. We were playing with Michael Brecker, Christian McBride, and Pat. That was our quartet. And we were sharing the bill. It was a double bill with the Chick Corea Electric Band, which Chick put together again. Of course, I was like a kid in the candy store, looking at them rehearse, and I didn't know if Chick knew who I was or anything. And I had been playing with Pat for already a couple of years, and I remember I was like standing very close to Chick during his sound check, and all of a sudden he looks at me, and I'm like, oh, maybe I'm standing too close. And then he just says to me, "Hey, Antonio," and he called me by my name, and I was like, I could not believe that he knew who I was. So I took that opportunity, and I went up to tell him in his break. I was like, "Chick, I really don't want to die before I get to play with you." And he said, "Oh yeah, oh okay, cool." And nothing much happened from that. But then 2 weeks later, I get a phone call from him saying, "Oh, I have this little gig in Miami. Do you want to do it?" And I was like, I just couldn't believe it, that I was going to get to play with the man, the myth, the legend, Chick Corea. And he was just one of the most prolific geniuses. In my eyes, he was like a cat that you could throw out up in the air, and he would always land on his feet. He would put together some crazy combinations of musicians and always made it work. He was like the glue in between everything that was happening. And he could always make it sound good. He had insane time feel. And of course, his harmonic and melodic concepts were just incredible. And he was just such a nice person. So then I invited him to be on my first record, Migration, and he wrote a couple of tunes for that, one called One for Antonio. So for Chick Corea to write a tune dedicated to me with my name on it, I mean, I couldn't have been more in heaven. So we played on and off for a bunch of years, and I just feel so privileged to have been able to share music with him. So happy birthday wherever you are, Chick. You're the man. You're a legend, and we miss you terribly. Happy birthday.